From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, it was a long introduction for Luke Loucks as the new head basketball coach for Florida State. We break down the headline moments. We're forcing the football as well. There's stuff to talk about, I think. And baseball hosts Florida, what we're looking for on the diamond from the Noles tonight. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. Vitamin Energy is synergistically enhanced with energy and the vitamins, everybody, including that new Focus Plus tropical infusion flavor with clinically proven ingredients like B16, B12, citrulloline, potassium, vitamin B3, green tea extract, and somehow it tastes delicious without any sugar, which means no sugar crash. Give it a try. VitaminEnergy.com, clinically proven to improve focus, reduce brain fog, to enhance your mood. It's incredible. One little bottle. Vitamin Energy. Warchant.com, ultimate Seminole sports source, 5-star rating and review. Keep meaning to do this, Corey. And I'm so terribly organized here that I don't have it all ready to go. But I think Santa Nole is one of our newest Warchant members-only subscribers. So shout out to him. I know our guy James B. is flashing that W logo. So it's good to see these people interacting with all the content that's been up over on the YouTube channel of late, which includes all the stuff from the introductory press conference from Luke Loucks on Monday. And you know, Corey Clark, you've put in a lot of hard work. You've changed your life. You've improved it. I don't know if Anna De Armas or, who's my lady from Wolf of Wall Street, Margot Robbie, if they're like, wow, Corey, big fan of headlines and wake up. But you're looking good these days. And you've got the platform of the new men's head basketball coach for Florida State University, pausing the press conference as you're asking him a question, like, Corey Clark, man, look at you, man. You look good. How'd that feel, Corey Clark?
It's all worth it. It's all been worth it, Aslan. The getting up at like a 10:30, sometimes 11 o'clock, getting to the gym, all the pumping and grinding that I've been doing for the last 3 years. It's worth it. I mean, look now. So to give some context, we had to introduce ourselves at the press conference. Corey Clark, Warchant.com. Obviously, I've known Luke for 16 years, which is crazy. But I said, hey, good to see you again. I'm glad you're back, whatever I said. He's like, hey, Corey, man, you look – I don't know how he said it. You look great or you look really good. You've lost a lot of weight. Whatever it was is very, very nice. And the reason I say that, Aslan, is because we're talking about a D1 athlete here now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Like game recognizes game. Like, he sees in me, probably a guy he might have played against 15, 16 years ago. Just an elite athlete, an elite athletic body. Dare I say a specimen? And you're right. I wouldn't care if Margot Robbie said that. It doesn't mean as much as the Florida State basketball coach. And if he's looking to get on the right foot with one of the power brokers in this city.
That's right.
Buddy, that was a smart move on his part, for sure.
So he's going to invite us out someday to run sets and put on uniforms and everything. I'm excited / nervous because there's no other sport that leaves you more naked to your vulnerabilities as an athlete or your greatness as an athlete as much as the game of basketball. And boy, am I going to be naked with vulnerabilities.
Yeah, he did say something like that, right? Like, I thought he'd say we do like a film session or a scouting report. I didn't remember the part where he said we'd actually we'd play a game or do a practice, but like he's talking about the FSU media, not just Aslan and I, like the FSU media contingent, which is probably 8 or 10 of us, 12 of us maybe. I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to run full speed. I save that for the tread. You know what I'm saying, Aslan?
Yeah, I got you.
I don't save it for I don't because I would legitimately I'd want to impress Luke Loucks because I'm an idiot. And I would end up pulling something or breaking something and then not being out of commission for a year. And nobody needs that or wants that. No. That's an Achilles tendon just waiting to be snapped. But I look forward to because I think he did say something about like watching film, breaking down film, or scouting sets and stuff. And I would love to know. I think that's a really smart play on his part. to let us in. He said we get to watch a practice, but then also, kind of, I don't know if we'd actually go through a practice, but go through a film session, because I think that you you can really learn the game that way and learn what the new head coach is trying to get. And that was a long press conference. Now that was an hour long on Monday.
It was. So let's get to it then. I'm not going to say that he won the press conference because nothing of personal note. That's like a New Year's resolution from 2 years ago. I'm no longer going to say that a coach won the press conference. So we can just kind of volley back and forth, I guess maybe headlines. I think what I most enjoyed, and man, he just had so much he wanted to get off his chest and talk about and share for his vision, which I think is awesome, but also I'm not going to overthink it and be like, man, he's trying to do a whole lot at a place that, he might not have as much, the abilities, whether it's financial resources or human resources, to get all this done. But one of the things, obviously, the common thing was him talking about how special this job is to him, this place, Tallahassee, this institution is. But a couple of times he kind of kept coming back to, and this kind of tied into some of the things that he talked about, like his 5 pillars, if you will, which his 5 pillars were really like 15, because he was like, all right, number 2, and then he said 3 things. But it was just his level of competitiveness and not trying to defer and concede that, listen, we're Florida State, we are not Duke, we're not North Carolina, we're going to have to just kind of accept our station in life. A real sort of a level of ambition that seems pragmatic, but also aspirational to, I'm very competitive. If you're going to play for my program, man, you have to believe we're stepping on the court every single time, coming out to win a game. And I know that's like a really sort of lower level, bottom bar to kind of clear, but that was something that I'm like, okay, that's going to be a tough thing to find and drill into kids that are coming here, but that's where you have to start if you want to be kind of playing with a shorter deck than everybody else that you're competing against. At least have kids that are going to play their freaking hearts off, So that was the thing that stood out for me off the rip.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I was thinking about it. I had a lot of time to think about it because I was at the I was at the press conference and I had a long drive. So I had a lot of time to think about it, and I wrote a column about it. But what I thought was not telling, but insightful, and I wrote about it a little bit, is like you talked about, we're not going to take a backseat to this team or that team. Why would Luke Loucks? Like Luke Loucks' last team, he brought it up. Ira brought it up, actually. Ira brought up in his question talking about winning at Duke his last year, beating North Carolina, winning the ACC, and he's like, yeah, man, he goes, that they beat North Carolina by 30 points his senior year. Florida State did. 30 points. North Carolina was a 1 seed that year. They also beat them in the ACC championship game, the same team. They beat them twice. And I think that's something that he knows it can be done. I think that means something, right? This is not a wing and a prayer. No, it's not easy. It's not easy at all, but he lived it. He lived that life of an ACC champion. He was a part of it. He saw how it happened. So it wouldn't seem like just this unbelievable accomplishment that couldn't be reached or this peak that's too high to get to. He got there. And he got there, obviously 2012, I guess Snare was probably their biggest recruit. But, Loucks wasn't a McDonald's All-American. Dulkes wasn't a McDonald's All-American. Gibson wasn't either. Bernard James wasn't. Like, they got there by being a really good team that practiced hard and played well and was athletic and defended. So it didn't take a miracle to get them to where they were to win an ACC and beat Duke and beat North Carolina in the same year twice, both of them. Because they beat Duke in the semifinals of the tournament that year too. Man, I think that means something. Not just that he's from Florida State, but he knows that Florida State can win.
What else stood out to you, Corey? He didn't really want to elaborate on staffing hires, which I don't know, is this wrong or maybe on the sort of right track? I don't think he's going to retain anybody because he kind of said he didn't want to talk about staffing because they're currently in the midst of a season. It would be disrespectful, I guess, to Ham and those guys to talk about it. I just didn't get the feeling, although he had really effusive praise for Stan Jones, I would imagine he's going to kind of go and get his own kind of assistance. And then did we get a feel for what kind of team he wants when he talked about, I guess, listen, he wants to get to the bucket because either you're going to get to the free throw line, which is the most efficient shot in basketball, or you're going to get a layup or a slam dunk, and then it also opens up kick-out three-point opportunities. So I don't know if there's anything unique about his approach, but in terms of staffing and personnel of what he wants to get for this roster, what did you kind of glean from what he was able to say?
Well, I would say this about the staff. I don't know that it necessarily says he's not keeping anyone. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, but let's say he was keeping someone. Well, you wouldn't announce that either, because then the other 3 or 4 or 5 guys are like, well, oh, great. So, you know what I mean? Like, so right. Even if he was keeping 1 or 2 guys, and I'm talking about support staff too, not just staff, I don't think that's something you'd want to talk about, but because they're all going through a season. They have a job to do starting tonight against not very good Syracuse team. And he doesn't want to. He said it 3 or 4 times, like, out of respect to Coach Hamilton. He's not going to discuss that now. But yeah, I think when he talks about his scheme, he talked a lot about competitiveness. I love, and it's a fair point, man. Like, he was joking. Like, you're not a Division I caliber quarterback and a Division I point guard in the ACC, a starting point guard in the ACC championship team that had like 13 or 14 assists in the championship game, which I think is still a tournament record. And you're not unathletic. That you don't get there. But for Leonard Hamilton recruit, he might be right in that he might be one of the slowest guys he's ever recruited and played and started. Luke Loucks was not an incredible athlete. He was not blessed with elite athleticism. So think about how competitive you have to be, how analytical you have to be, although he didn't really play like that much his first couple of years, but how competitive and tough and smart you have to be to play as much as he did for a Leonard Hamilton team without having some of that elite athleticism that a Michael Snare had or Devin Vassell had later or an MJ Walker even. Like that's pretty unique. So I thought that was a good point when he brought that up, because Ira called him. He's like, you were a really good basketball player. And he's like, hold on. I was an average basketball player, which, again, is not true. He's an incredible basketball player comparatively for the human race. He was not a great basketball player in the ACC, but by the people we know and we played with, he'd be the best player you ever saw for the vast majority of us if you played with him in a pickup game. But I like that mindset he brings, that he was not a McDonald's All-American. But and he talked a lot about that I wrote a lot about, actually, that last question that Ira asked about getting guys to believe because his team believed. I don't remember exactly how Ira phrased it, but I'm giving Ira a lot of praise on this show. It's mainly because Luke didn't say anything to him about how great he looked.
Right.
So I felt bad for my guy. So I'm trying to pump him up a little bit. But, he asked that question about that team that he had, and knowing that it can be done. You can go win at Duke. You can go win an ACC. And I thought Luke's point was like, yeah, we got in there as freshmen. The coaching staff was feeling the heat. And we could tell they were feeling the heat because they hadn't been to the tournament before. And if they hadn't have made the tournament that year, Luke's freshman year, yeah, man, Leonard's retirement party would have been 15 years ago. I'm 100% convinced that if Tony Douglas's year didn't happen, and I always will refer to it as that, Leonard Hamilton would have been fired after the 2009 season, because that would have been 7 straight years of missing the tournament. You just cut your losses at that point. But it wasn't just Tony Douglas that got there. He was the biggest reason, but it was Luke. It was Singleton. It was Solomon Allaby. It was a bunch of kind of role players, young players, that just believed, and as Luke said, we were naive. We didn't really know any better. And this was back when the ACC was legit the ACC. Like, that was Hansbrough, Ty Lawson. I mean, those were some incredible North Carolina teams and Duke teams through those years. And I like that he brings that mindset, and he talked about that. Like, you got to get guys that believe, but you got to get guys that compete. And we kind of glossed over it a little bit, and I know I'm rambling a little bit because it's just a lot of stuff going through my brain. But the fact that he talks so much about competitiveness, if you're not a guy that, number one, that is there to win and win a lot, but also you're not a competitive kid, he doesn't want you. I can tell you this, him and Dulkes were about as competitive as guys as you're ever going to meet. Snare, too. Like, all those guys, man, that guard trio back then was really, really competitive. And that's what you need. I'm not trying to bring up old wounds. Well, they're not that old. They're pretty fresh because the season's still going on. This team that we have, that we've watched the last couple of years, it doesn't ring with competitiveness. It doesn't overflow with competitiveness, in my opinion. That's what Luke Loucks hopefully will bring back. Is he will instill a little more competitiveness, and then when you go into the scheme aspect of it, talking about the paint, and like all I want, he's like the main thing I want is paint touches, because paint touches lead to either free throws, dunks, or kickouts for threes. it is music to my ears to hear the head coach say kick out for threes. Because that's the game, man. Get somebody that can get into the paint, draw the defense, and kick out to what you hope is a very good shooter that can knock it down. So I was excited about the little that he talked about scheme, and he talked a good bit. I mean, he talked about it. It just out of the hour, it was probably 20% of what he talked about. But the scheme, I was very encouraged by what he was saying offensively and defensively, for that matter.
I mean, I don't know how much more meat's on the bone. Again, about those things that are really going to be the crux of what gets this thing kind of turned around. But I was, thinking about why take this job. And I'm not trying to say this is not a good job. I think it's a really good job. And it's Florida State is probably middle of the pack in the ACC when it comes to basketball. And this is historically a really good basketball conference. It's a little bit down this year. But when you hear him talking about, and I don't think he was name dropping, but obviously, listen, he was with the Golden State Warriors, and it sounded like Steve Kerr.
Buddy, he was absolutely name-dropping. Hey, good for him. He needs to. He needs to sell himself and what he's been doing the last 15 years. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but it sounded like Steve Kerr legitimately created a job just to have Luke on staff. Not because he needed Luke Loucks around Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to win an NBA championship, but saw something in him to kind of create a job, a role, to have Luke part of that franchise. Then he goes to the Kings and we talked about how much Mike Brown has kind of been instrumental in developing him. And Mike Brown obviously is off the Greg Popovich tree. And I think, maybe Ira, or I don't know, somebody asked him about when he kind of or I think it was Gene. Shout out Gene Williams out there asking questions about when he knew he was going to become like a coach, what made him think that he could actually do this. And he went out to dinner with Mike Brown, who, coached LeBron in Cleveland and was with the Lakers for a few years and has been at Sacramento until this past year. But, kind of told me, listen, man, you're going to be a head coach. It's not a matter of, if, it's just when. And you're like, well, maybe if he just kind of hunkers down and it could have found something in the NBA, which you think would be this really awesome, crowning achievement. But so much about it was his family, it sounded like, right? His wife, his two kids that are under the age of 7. And he talks about, listen, you're traveling half the time. I mean, you're playing an 80-game schedule. Even when you're there, you're totally focused and engulfed with everything that's going on in the game. You've got draft, combine, all this sort of stuff to where, as crazy as it is to be a college football coach, maybe a college basketball coach, you can still kind of have somewhat of a family life, even though Luke admitted it's still going to be really difficult because the last 3 days he slept a combined 9 hours because he's on his phone trying to get everything done. So maybe this everything lined up really well that this made so much sense for him to take the job, not because it's a good first job, but this is just a good job, period.
Yeah, and I do believe that. I do believe he thinks that this is a really good job. It's a job that a lot of people would have walked to Tallahassee to coach this program, even though it hasn't been all that great here the last few years. It's still a Division I, high level, high major Division I basketball program, and I think he said the last 50 days he had been at home 12 nights, because that's the life of an NBA coach. You have 41 regular season road games. You also have, I don't know, man, probably 4 or 5 exhibition games. You make the playoffs, that's another 2 weeks at least. If you're one of the good teams, it's another 2 months. And it's I can imagine how that would just – so I think it's still going to be hard, but when you've lived the NBA assistant life, and those hours aren't easy, man. They're just not. You're always breaking down film. You always got walk through the day of a game. You've got practice or morning shoot around the days between games. You've got the season goes on for 8 months, and legitimately half the time you're on the road. And he's got 3 kids under 7. This will be he'll be at home more. That doesn't mean he won't be working as hard. In fact, I personally think he's going to be working harder than he's been the last 3 years, even as he was trying to climb the ladder, because this is his program now. This is him. It's never been his show. This is his show. If Florida State sucks, it's on Luke Loucks. If Florida State's awesome, it's him too. That was never the case in Sacramento, and it absolutely wasn't the case in Golden State. He had very little to do. I'm just being honest. He had very little to do with the Warriors winning championships. He wasn't a bench coach, and they also had Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. You know what I mean? And Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. I mean, that was one of literally, I think the 2 years he was there, you could argue those were the 2 best NBA basketball teams of all time. I mean, just unbelievably good. And he was there for that, which is awesome. But it wasn't the Luke Loucks show. This is on him now. This is all on him, and there are going to be some growing pains. There's going to be a learning curve, but I keep coming back to this, Aslan, and I was thinking about it. Like, I was thinking of as I was again, long drive on Monday after the press conference. I bet I could name in my life, and I bet a lot of people listening to this could name, and I'm talking about you, actually. I believe in my heart you care more about Florida State's football's fortunes, long term, than Mike Norvell. I think you've lived and died with this program for the last 25 years of your life. It means more to you than almost anything in the world. And when I'm talking to you, Aslan, I'm talking to everybody, most everybody listening to this. It is one of the great passions of your life. It is not just a job. It is a passion. You care about it immensely. It's why you listen to us yammer on 300 days a year talking about this, sometimes not even talking about football at all. When it comes to FSU basketball, so I'm saying dozens of people in your life like that, right? Where Florida State football is a passion, and they they do care about it more than Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell cares about doing a great job because he's wired that way. But he doesn't. If he was at Arizona State, he would care just as much about Arizona State, or if he was at Rice or Kansas as he does Florida State right now. Florida State would be in his rear view. Or if he had never shown up in Tallahassee, wouldn't have mattered, wouldn't have affected his life. What about basketball when it comes to Florida State? Like, who do you know that lives and dies with Florida State basketball?
Random_John.
Not many, though, right? Where it's their passion.
Yeah.
And here's the point I was going to try to make. I don't know, and I'm legitimate here, I don't know if there's another person in the city of Tallahassee where Florida State basketball means more to them than it does the head coach. It's kind of it's a unique thing, man. That's a different place. He helped build up a program that won the ACC championship and went to the tournament 4 straight years. He grew up a Florida State fan. I think he grew up a Duke basketball fan. I was actually hoping during the press conference, because remember when Chris Nee asked the question, he's like, Chris, when did we first meet? And Nee, I think Nee said like 2006, when Luke would have been like 16, because Nee was doing high school basketball recruiting, and so they met then. That's crazy. I was hoping he was going to ask me that, but then he gave me the compliment, so I wasn't worried.
Corey Clark with Warchant. Good to see you.
How you doing, Corey?
Awesome that you're here, man.
Corey, you look good.
Hey, thanks,
You've
buddy.
lost some weight, man.
I have. Thank you. Thank you for noticing.
Been working out.
Yeah, I'll give you the 50
Corey.
when we're done.
There we go.
Because the first time I interviewed Luke Loucks, I'm pretty sure it was when they were getting ready to play at Duke his freshman year. Probably not the first time, but one of the first 3 or 4 times. And I asked him if he grew up a Duke fan. He's like, well, yeah, I grew up a Duke basketball fan because, white point guard, Duke, white point guards. And I remember Jim Lamar actually took that quote out of my story. And I'm like, man, that's a great quote. That's funny. But so I think he grew up a Duke basketball fan, but he is through and through a Florida State sports fan. He was an enormous Florida State football fan. And he played in the program. So again, this isn't just a job to him to go through all that. There aren't that many people on the planet. You could probably count on one hand that care as much about Florida State basketball as Luke Loucks. It might be a 100-way tie if you take some of the players, but there's not many people there's nobody you could say actually absolutely cares more than Luke Loucks. They might care as much, but not more. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes, man, because this isn't just a job to him. It's not a stepping stone. As he told Ira, and we'll see if this is true or not, but he's like, I want this to be my last job. Odds are it won't be. That means he'd have to coach here another 30 years probably, but you want to hear that. It means something to him, man. And I just think with that competitiveness, with what we think is a work ethic, we don't know for sure. I mean, I'm sure he has a great work ethic. I'm just saying it's speculative now. I can't say what I haven't seen. In the fact that I am unquestioned in how much he cares about this program, it's going to be an interesting ride.
It's going to be an interesting week, everybody, because it's Tuesday now. So the week has really started because we can get out and have some fun over the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill because it's trivia night and Corey's not there to bogart the trophy with his big old brain of his. Come on out to the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill for trivia night. It starts at 7 o'clock. Can't make it out to trivia on Tuesday. Come back out Thursday night. Bingo night starts at 7 o'clock. Cash money up for grabs. 4 different rounds. $250 cash money on the table for each single round. Friday night, live music. Why, yes. Woody Harvey grinding the axe from 6 to 9 o'clock. Come check that out. And I don't know if you're not going to be at Hauser later today. Maybe catch the game on the Vegas wall of TVs.
Yeah.
And then, the ladies aren't playing their tournament for another week and change, but the ACC tournament starts today for the Noles and Leonard and the boys. So check that out as well. Everything you need in a sports bar. It's all one place. 2475 Appalachia Parkway. It's called Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. We are back. It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. I'm going to try to force the football at some point in the show today, Corey, because we didn't talk about football at all on the Monday program, which is
well. What are you going to do, man?
I don't know.
New head coach.
So just my last thing on the Luke hire, I did like when he was talking about. I guess you asked him about the transfer portal, and he said the transfer portal waits for nobody, and he did want to finish things out in Sacramento, but it just wasn't going to be tenable to do that, and try to. He said he was going to pay for it for the next 12 months of his life if he didn't take the job right now. I do like, and listen, this is not a unique circumstance. A lot of former players end up going overseas and trying to hold on and extend their careers, and then maybe come back here and figure something else out. But when he talked about how they're going to recruit guys, and like he's been in it, right? He talks about all the crazy things that we think college sports have turned into and called the Wild Wild West. And he's like, that's a Wednesday in the NBA. This guy's making max contract. This guy's making NBA veteran minimum. He wants more money. He wants more touches. He wants more minutes, and having to balance all these sort of egos. And he's like, listen, it's been my life. And then obviously him playing Euro basketball for a while, right? Like chasing that out. I know he said Latvia. Listen, there's some cool places to play in Europe, and I'm not trying to hate on our friends over in the Baltic states, but I don't know if Latvia is like where they fall on the food chain for playing Euro League basketball. But I do think he mentioned like sitting down with these guys and telling them that he's going to like maximize their earning potential. So they get here early and they stick with the program. But he is going to use a transfer portal, but he wants to recruit well from the jump, get these guys in as freshmen, and then mold them and keep them in the program. Because like, listen, if you stick with us, we can develop you so that you'll make way more money than you would chasing NIL deals here and there. So I would think with his sort of background, his experience, and that sort of message he has, he's going to be able to kind of resonate with some of these players to bring them into the fold and hopefully keep them around so that he can develop a core much similar to what they were in 2012.
Yeah, I think that's the selling point for the people that don't know who Luke Loucks is that he has worked with obviously some of the best players in the world. I feel like he's almost De'Aaron Fox's personal coach. De'Aaron Fox even said when he was talking about Luke, I saw the comment I saw his little clip on Twitter when he was asked about Loucks. He's like, it was a great job. It's a dream job for him. And he goes, I guess I'm going to be working out in Florida now. It's like, well, golly, he really does work out with this guy. This is his dude. So, yeah, I think that's the selling point. I thought it was interesting when he talked about, the Kansas, Kentuckys, Dukes, he's like some players are making more than coaches. And he goes, we're not getting those guys. I'm not going to even try to get those guys. But I want to recruit the state of Florida. I want to keep the kids in the state of Florida. And then he's like, I want to retain my roster each year. And the way you retain them is like Aslan was saying, was that you tell them, okay, the money we might not be able to give you now, we're going to make you 10 times that money if you stay here and develop with us, because we'll get you to be a draft pick, or we'll get you overseas, that's the prospect of developing players. And again, he hasn't done it at this level. He's done it at the NBA level. They're already pretty good when they got there, but that's a selling point. If he can back that up and like recruit some guys that are like sophomores at Winthrop and turn them into NBA draft picks or 20-point scorers or guys that go and make millions of dollars overseas, that's a selling point. That's something you put your hat, and then maybe you can start getting those guys from the bigger schools earlier. The bigger recruits earlier. It's gonna, but you could just tell, man. He already said he talked to a bunch of he's already thought a lot about the portal, and you have to. And so he's thought about the portal. He says he's got some connections. Obviously, he's got connections in basketball, scouting department connections. He said he had, I think,
agents.
And he said his phone was nonstop from agents and scouts calling him about players. He had a bunch of people call him about jobs too, but he also had a bunch of scouts and agents to call him about potential transfers. Man. Leonard had a ton of connections too, a ton of connections. The difference was Leonard's program had gotten to the point where you didn't see a lot of development happening. Luke is the beauty of the unknown. He might be, and I hate to use this comparison, but remember how Willie Taggart almost got all those guys until they saw the product? He was in on Thibodeau.
Dude, his Saturday Night Lights or Friday Night Lights thing that he had the number one player from the state of Mississippi that was like N'Kobe Dean, the number one player from the state of Alabama that was George Pickens. He had Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah.
I don't know who the number one player in Georgia was, but I'm pretty sure they were there. The number one player from Louisiana was this offensive lineman. Like everybody was in Tallahassee for this first showcase recruiting event. Yeah, he had everybody there and chomping at the bit to join.
And
the program.
it turned out none of them. They saw how the team played in 18 and then decided to go elsewhere, which was the biggest mistake of all their lives. But with Luke, there's that new car smell. There's the beauty of the unknown, and there's the allure of the unknown. And unfortunately, sadly, again, because I love Leonard to death, but it was known that this program is slipping. Maybe you're not getting developed great, or at least the last few years hasn't been there had been a lot of poster children for great development and guys that went to the league. He wasn't a pipeline to the league like it had been before COVID. So players went elsewhere, even if they were involved with them at all. They went elsewhere. A lot of that is resources too. Now it's not just I want to go get developed and I need to go somewhere else. It's Florida State wasn't necessarily competitive in that space. And we asked Alford. Alford was asked afterwards. It was about a 10-minute press conference where he talked, and he said yes. That he number one, he did say that Luke would be a great person to go build donorships and get money from people because he, as Luke said multiple times on Monday, he likes to talk. He's good at it, and I think he will sell a program and sell a vision. But yes, Alford did say that they know they need to be competitive. They plan on being competitive with the resources that are allowed until if and when the House settlement comes into fruition. But yeah, how
much of that hometown discount? I mean, I'm sorry to interject, but like how much of the home? I'm assuming he's giving them a hometown discount a bit, or if not, at least substantially
Who,
less.
Luke?
At least substantially less than what Leonard was making. So maybe that's kind of part of the whole agreement. Like this will work out because we can pay you this, and then we can divert this to that.
But here's the reality, man. Yes, obviously Leonard. Luke's not going to make anywhere close to what Leonard's making. Luke didn't have any leverage, and he just no. I would think, like I said on yesterday's show, I'd imagine he's half of what Leonard's making, or like 70% of what Leonard was making. So you're saving money there. But the reality is, man, you've got to be smart with the money you get. They are not going to be dirt cheap. You're going to get more money than Florida Gulf Coast or Winthrop or probably or Boston College or Georgia Tech even. But you're not going to get Florida money or Kentucky money or North Carolina money or Texas money. It's not going to be close. So you got to work smarter with what you do get. And they'll try to be competitive, but at the end of the day, man, this is such a big 3 years for football. It is such a big 3 years for football. The people that give money to Florida State University for players, for roster retention, for whatever, they're probably going to be the money is going to be diverted to where it's needed most, and that is football. I want them to be competitive in basketball, and I think they can be. They were competitive this year. They weren't good, but they weren't horrible. They were competitive this year. So I want them to be competitive in basketball, but the reality is if there's only a finite amount of money to go around, the vast majority is going to be spent and, frankly, needs to be spent on football because football dictates the future of the university. And you've got to get that squared away. You've got to be good at that. Luke gets a couple of years to get his feet wet, figure out how to run a program. Maybe he figures it out immediately. Maybe he's like the guy at BYU that he knows. I think they coached together at Phoenix maybe. That's now the head Kevin Young, who's now the head coach at BYU in his first year. Yep. So maybe he'll be like that and have a really successful first season. But he's going to get a couple, 3 years, like I said, to have some leeway to figure this thing out and to get it going. But he is not going to have a blank check to go fill this roster out. And it starts, honestly, with what's he going to spend on the current roster? Who does he even want off this current roster? He is flying. He'll be in Charlotte tonight for those games. He'll get to watch this team up close. I think he's probably been to one game this year. I think he came for the All-Star break and got to watch them play. But he'll be here and up close watching this team play. It'll be interesting to see who plays well and if that means anything moving forward. And I keep coming back to Malik Ewan.
Keep him, by all means.
Just
I don't know.
Fascinated.
What position
with
is
that.
Florida State in to let him walk?
Well, again, if you're going to pay,
you get outbid. You get outbid.
That's what I was going to say. I'm just going to throw a number out there. If he wants 1.2, I don't know that you're giving him that kind of money. But that might literally be what the head coach is making. If he's willing to stay at his current rate and maybe be a better leader or be a leader and be a guy that Luke can count on and goals are specified, then he's absolutely somebody you can build around. But yeah, he's got to figure out what guys on his roster he wants to keep, and then go about retaining them. All the while figuring out what guys in the portal. I don't know what the high school recruiting situation is going to be. I literally have no idea. I don't even know if they have what their commitments even are. I don't even know if they have a commitment. Literally, I don't know if they have a commitment that would be a freshman next year. But all of that is on the table, and he's got to do roster building, all of it, in the next month.
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
That's it. That's it. And get a staff together.
Yeah. Sounded like the door was ajar for some football talk. Not the hottest take here, really anything that I think is going to directly probably impact Florida State. But I was listening to the Rosillo podcast during some of my travels over the last 4 days. Tallahassee, Jacksonville, down to Tampa, back to Jacksonville. Be making my way back to Tallahassee later today so I can watch the Noles hopefully take down the Gators. One of only 2 undefeated teams left now, the Florida State Seminoles, Link Jarrett and company. But
who's the other one, Aslan? Who's the other one?
Tennessee.
Yep, the defending national champs because of a check swing.
Unbelievable. But Rosillo had Will Howard on his his podcast, and he was talking about picking Ohio State. He said like USC, Miami were 2 of the other schools. He said if he had 2 years of eligibility, he probably would have gone to USC just because of Lincoln Riley. He said Miami would have been fun because they throw the ball all around the park or whatever. But he said like with Ohio State, it just felt like 1 year that was the best place to go. And he said like, listen, I didn't want anything given to me. I didn't want anything promised to me. And they didn't. But they told me that like, we want you to be our guy. Which I think, and I believe a lot of these coaches. I believe Mike Norvell. I believe these players when they say that these coaches haven't promised them or guaranteed them anything. Do you think there's ever a point in recruiting Brock Glenn or keeping Brock Glenn here that Mike Norvell or anybody on staff has ever told him, we want you to be our guy? And again, probably not doesn't mean a lot in the grand scheme of things, because if Tommy takes off, I'm 99.9% sure they've got 2 seasons from him, because the 1 year that he did play in a 5th game, it was a conference title game. And yes, this was before they stopped counting that towards eligibility, but I feel like that's probably an easy slam dunk, retroactive thing you can do. So either you get 2 good years of Tommy, or Tommy flames out, and you probably jump right back in the portal. But I just wonder, like when they're talking to these players about, we want you to be our guy, how many guys, and maybe not even Brock Glenn specific, but like how many guys you think that they've recruited from high school, they've looked at and said, we want you to be our guy at position X, as we kind of think about what they're going to look like in spring.
What do you mean by we want you to be their guy? What's the context of that?
Like we want you to be our starter. Like you can't promise like you're come to Florida State, we're giving you the starting job,
right.
Deuce Robinson. But like we want you to be our guy. Like we want you to be the guy that's going to lead us in receiving. Like we want you to be the guy that's going to make big time plays for us. Like how many guys have they recruited, you think, from high school where they've said to them in the last 2-3 years, whether it's to like again to recruit them out of high school or to maintain them on the roster, they've looked at those guys and really told them like, we need you to be our guy at this position.
Yeah, I think there's probably a few, but not many. I don't know that's how they talk to the players. Like they definitely want them to be a guy, be a good player, but I don't know that. I wonder how much Norvell would go to like LaShawn McCoy. That'd be something. Yeah. And say you've got to take a step up because you need to be one of our dudes next year. We're counting on you to be one of our dudes, because I feel like, just me personally, I feel like he probably does that a good bit. But maybe not in those words where like you're going to be our starter. We want you to catch 50 balls, but we need you to step up, man. We need you to be a player because it's in you, and I know it's in you. So go take that next step and be that guy, be a guy.
It's funny that you said wide receiver and you went to Luann McCoy, because part of this of me thinking I wanted to angle something with like Hakeem Williams almost to a certain degree, and I wondered like that's a guy I would have thought like at least when he was coming out of high school and they were battling Texas A&M with him, like listen, we look at you as somebody that's going to be a huge part of our plans in the future, and like that future is now for a guy like him.
Yeah. But again, it's like, okay, but you got two outside guys that you brought in that are going to play a lot. Maybe Squirrel White's more of a slot guy. I don't know. Is he? I guess he
so.
could do both. But yeah, I mean, there's two guys that are coming to play a lot. But yeah, I think it's. Look, man, I think the biggest problem that was, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, but he hasn't recruited well enough at the high school level. That was obvious last year. It's when you go 2-10, maybe the cupboard isn't as full as you thought. Maybe it's a little more bare than you thought. And I know this isn't the question that was asked, but I don't know that he's recruited enough good players. In fact, I know he hasn't. He hasn't recruited enough good players from the high school level. He's gotten guys that have been spot starters. He's gotten guys that have been regulars and contributors. Not a ton of star power there. And when you lose a bunch of star power off an undefeated team, and then you've got nothing but your high school guys coming up behind it, and they're just simply not good enough. They're not Florida State. They weren't Florida State caliber. That was shown in the Georgia game when they got embarrassed, and then it was shown all of last season. That wasn't good enough. That caliber wasn't good enough. I don't know if it's so much challenging those guys as just going and getting better guys. Hakeem Williams is not one of those examples, though, by the way. I think Hakeem Williams can be a player. But, I don't know that I don't know that he's going to be a difference maker this year. It'd be cool if he was. Yeah. It'd be awesome if he tapped into that potential, but we'll see, right? Like the jury is very much out, and there's no benefit of the doubt given really on any of these guys that Norvell's brought in from the high school ranks because he hasn't done a very good job with it. And hopefully the guys that from the 2024 class and then this class materialize and become something. But that hasn't happened yet, man. What lineman has he brought in? Farmer? And I'm talking about on both sides of the ball.
I mean, Peyton there for a minute, but yeah, I mean, Farmer's the only one that is going to left here as a Florida State.
That's going to be drafted.
Yeah,
yeah, man, that's not a great hit rate. It's not a great hit rate. So I know I'm not really answering your question.
No, we're forcing the football, Corey. There's no.
We tried. I tried to force an answer. Yeah. I'm a politician, man. I'm going to answer what I want to answer. I don't care what your question is. And I do have a great body. And Luke Loucks is a smart guy for noticing it. It's pretty simple. At least we know he has eyesight, gang. Yeah. At least we know he has eyesight. But going back to football real quick, I do think that's if Norvell is going to work, and it's not just like, oh, you've got to have a bunch of NFL dudes that you recruit. That's great, fine. You've got to have guys that are starting caliber ACC players that are not only starting caliber, which is good enough, it's promising, but are pushing your portal guys. So maybe a Deuce Robinson, as good as he might be, doesn't just come in and know he's going to start. You know what I'm saying? Knows he's going to start. Or you have a backfield that's good enough that a true freshman isn't assumed to be the best player in the backfield. Or, quite frankly, that a guy that couldn't really play, that got benched at Boston College, is your unquestioned starting quarterback. But that's where the high school recruiting has left them. And again, I'm saying all this thinking that they're going to be a pretty good team this year. But I'm saying you want to get your program to a point where Deuce Robinson would transfer to Florida State, but he's got to compete his tail off to at least get on the field. Now, he's going to compete his tail off, I think, just because that's how he's wired, and he wants to go make a lot of money playing the sport. That's great. But he's not going to be pushed. Maybe he will, but I don't feel like he or like Darrell Jackson or Shaheem Brown are going to be pushed like you'd want them pushed from your younger guys.
Yeah. No.
I hope I'm wrong. Maybe these guys are growing up and they're getting better and they're getting faster and all that stuff. But it's just like that's where I think this program still has plenty of work to do. Is not just revamping the starting 22. It's the next 66, man. Get some guys that can really play and push the starting 22. That's where great programs are built. You can have a great season here or there if you avoid bad injury luck. If you have a good starting 22, or at least 11 of those guys are really, really good, you're going to have a good team. But a good program, that next 66 or that next 22 or that next 44 is where the great programs live. And so let's hope we see some of that.
Corey, you're lifting guru these days. Luke
Sure.
Petitbon was featured on the Florida State football Twitter feed, squatting what we were told was 625 pounds because this was vertically shot video, which did not show us what was on the bar. I absolutely believe there was 625 pounds on his back. I'm not disputing that. A lot of people, I don't know if actually I should ask you if you saw this video before I asked you this question, but a lot of people
I did see it, yeah.
I think he went down low enough. There's a lot of people, not even Gator fans hating on it, but saying that it wasn't a full to parallel squat. I thought it was a clean full rep. I like it. Also, Josh Storms looked so emotionally drained after the rep as though he did it. It was very interesting.
I saw it. I don't squat like that, as you can probably imagine. I can imagine a almost 50-year-old trying to squat anything close to that. There's no chance. I wouldn't try it. It would break me in half. I don't squat a lot anyway. I don't ever do a traditional squat. I do squats with dumbbells, essentially. I don't ever do a traditional squat.
Goblet squats. That's good stuff.
Yeah, because I don't want to hurt I'm not great at it. My form's not great, and I don't want to really hurt my back with putting it on my back.
Smart.
But I thought it was. I did notice it, but I think it's because I'm a novice. I'm like, I'd have gone down a little bit more, make it. And I also thought maybe a hand was on it, helping a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, next time, back away, everyone. Squat. Get a horizontal view so we can see the weight, and back up and squat down with him. Get a little squatter, but I mean he survived it, and it's even if he didn't go all the way down, Aslan. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's crumble.
Pretty impressive.
Josh Sweat, 4 years, Arizona bound, $76.4 million according to Drew Rosenhaus. 41 of it's guaranteed.
Nice. What a time to be alive, man! What a great career he's had. That's didn't see that coming.
Yeah, no.
But but just because he didn't do a whole lot here. I think he was like a fourth round pick. Yeah.
Like that.
So that's a fourth round pick that made a whole lot of money. So good for him. That was he's had a wonderful career and a bright kid. And I hope he. I don't know if he'll coach one day, but hopefully at least some point he'll come back to Florida State and maybe give some money to the roster.
Unsure if you can fit $76 million in a Ridge wallet, but I'm sure you can fit your debit card, Josh Sweat.
Yeah, yep.
And if you go to ridge.com/wakeup, Josh, you can save up to 40% off because even though you are 76 times over now a millionaire, money's money. Penny saved, penny earned. You too at home, everybody, not just NFL elite Super Bowl winning linemen are open to this promo that's going on right now. It's their once-a-year anniversary sale over at ridge.com/wakeup. Things great. It's flashing it all around Tampa. Showed my buddies. We were at the Edition Hotel, which apparently is the first 5-star hotel in Tampa. So I threw it on the table and check this thing out. They're like, ooh. They felt it. They liked the heft in it. So and my friends are hard to please, man. They're the kind of guys that got everything already. So they're like, I'm going to give this a spin. So I suggest you check it out too, everybody. Ridge.com/wakeup. We're back. It's Wake Up Warchant. It is sponsored and brought to you by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. Florida State, again, as we said earlier, one of only 2 undefeated teams remaining in Division I college baseball, the other one being Tennessee. They're taking on the Gators. Tonight, 6 o'clock, Evan Crest on the bump for the Noles. Some dude named Billy, I think, on the bump for the Gators. This is fun, man, because the midweek games are always kind of tricky to gauge and tell what you're getting out of it. It's mostly, I don't know, it's just kind of like a tune-up almost for your weekend games. But obviously with Florida coming to town, a big deal. Corey, what do you feel best about right now? Because obviously the level of competition, whatever people want to say about it. Listen, Florida State, I don't think has played any much more of an egregiously easier schedule than other teams across the country, but they keep winning. But we haven't seen them maybe go up against the elite kind of bats and arms that they might get a sniff of, at least arms maybe get a sniff of from Florida. What do you think will be able to kind of carry Florida State? What do you feel more confident about, that lineup or Crest and whoever they kind of roll out of the bullpen to keep the Gators at bay?
Yeah, honestly, you always hope they win. It'd be great if they won. They won them all last year. I think all of them were run rules or very big wins. At least 2 of them were run rule games. Including didn't they score like 20-something runs at Hauser last year? I know Denjus hit a grand slam. I feel like they scored almost 20 runs last year when they beat them here. It was a beatdown. But like literally like 8 runs in the first inning. Now I'm trying to think about it.
I'm looking at it.
Okay,
Fear
good.
not. Fear not. I'm on.
But anyway, you want them to win. Obviously, it's a Tuesday game. I think the goals for this team, and I think for every Link Jarrett team from here on out, will be to get to Omaha. That's the goal. I guess that's the goal for anybody that's coaching Florida
the last
State.
30 years, yeah. But
yeah, so that's always the goal. But these environments is what you want them to get. I think the environment, getting these young guys getting them comfortable and acclimated to this kind of environment and electricity is as important as seeing 94 on the hill or potential major league hitters in the batter's box. Like that, the competition is one thing. The rising competition is one thing. It's that environment and the energy that comes from playing Florida in that park is unlike anything that B.J. Gibson has ever felt, that Miles Bailey has ever felt, that Hunter Carnes has ever felt. Probably Evan Crest. He's never pitched in a game with this kind of energy and excitement. So I want to see how they handle that. Probably even Gage Harrelson. Like I don't think they get crowds like this for Texas Tech games. There's just not. So if whether they handle it well or not, whether they lose 10-1 or win the game, getting those reps with those kind of crowds and that kind of energy, that kind of anxiety and anticipation, I feel like can only help in June. You're hoping you're hosting a regional. You're hoping you're hosting a super regional. In a Saturday night in a regional or game 1 of a super regional has a Florida-like atmosphere. So get used to it. Get used to playing in front of – and they've played in front of big crowds already this year, but that's James Madison, man. You can go 0 for 4 with 4 Ks against JMU. Nobody cares because you're still going to win the game. You go 0 for 4 against the Gators because you're kind of just – you're gripping the bat so tight you're breaking it in half. That's stuff you just got to get used to. It's just the experience of it, I think, is really important for such a young team that their strength of this team is obviously the starting pitching, and you're not going to see any of those guys. But the bullpen is going to have to pitch in big moments in front of big crowds against good teams if this team is going to go anywhere. And I want to see how they handle the atmosphere, all of these guys. And so that's why I think tonight is that's what I'll be looking for. That's what's so interesting to me is Lodis, Farreau, Max Williams, they've handled it. Jackson West has played in these environments. Kind of nobody else has. So let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like for the new guys in the lineup that have never felt what this is going to feel like. And the more you get used to it, the more you look like James Tibbs last year anytime he played Florida. Anytime he played Florida. He crushed him. He killed him. So did Cam Smith. They were used to it. They had lived it. So get those reps now in an environment and atmosphere like this.
19-4. Florida State fell into a 2-0 hole in the bottom half of the first. Caglione went yard. Curlin went yard for the Gators. They responded with 6 runs in the first inning, 5 in the second inning, en route to a 19-4 win over the Gators. Also hung 14 on them in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And 12, I think, in Gainesville.
Run ruled them in Jacksonville, too, I think.
Yeah. So, do what you do, Link.
That was a good offensive team.
Sweep the leg.
That was a good offensive.
By the way, this team. I got faith in them. I know that team was, but
they're better on the mound if they stay healthy. This starting staff is. I mean, remember, Carson Dorsey ended up being their number 2 starter in the postseason. Was darn good. He wasn't even starting at this time last year. They lost Cam Leiter and they couldn't figure out who their number 2 or number 3 was. And then,
well, God bless him. He was here all 4 years or 5 years. Andrew Armstrong got the start and the win against Florida in that 19-4 drubbing. I mean, Evan Crest is a guy that he could easily find himself working into the weekend rotation at some point if he pushes the guys ahead of him. So.
Well, maybe, but I was more. I was saying that I think that this starting staff is better than last year's by a lot right now, and that's the strength of this team. That's what's going to be able to carry them to the postseason and hopefully a long way into the postseason is these 3 guys stay healthy. But I was going to say, Baseball America now has Jamie Arnold as the number 1 overall pick. Now it's early; it's a mock draft in March, but I don't know where he was where he was before, but they have him as the number 1 overall pick. That's pretty. That's cool. It also tells you there's nothing to worry about with him being missing the start.
Right.
Because they would not be moving him up in their mock draft. Baseball America is dialed in. They would be not move, and that means dialed in is like they talk to scouts. They're not just guessing, like the guys on the internet for the NFL or copying other ones that they see. They talk to scouts, and scouts are telling them that right now, at least a few of them are telling that they think Arnold will go 1-1, which is first one since if that was the case, it'd be the first time since Paul Wilson.
Yeah. Thank goodness his name is Jamie Arnold and not Jamie Clark. Because if his name was Jamie Clark, I don't think we'd see him pitch again until Omaha.
Well, no, that's not true. I'd let him. I'd let him close out some games.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd let him close out some games.
Generous of you.
I would have pulled a lot of what happened this past weekend. That would have happened. That happened a pretty good amount with Brady Clark. Like, just not his arm. His arm's fine.
Got a tickle on his throat. You know,
got a tickle on his throat. He stepped on a nail. He can't pitch. He's fine though. He'll be ready in May. Yeah, that's what I would do.
And this is the part where I feel like hypocritical because I'm not the biggest proponent, obviously, of NIL pay for play stuff. But you think about a guy like him that has all this vast potential that's just right on the horizon for him, and it's like, golly, just I want to see Florida State win a national title. And then like 1B behind that's like I just want this kid to get out of here healthy. Just make it through the season healthy and get all the riches that are coming his way when he makes it to the show. So
but get out of here healthy, hoisting a title.
Yes.
And I'll tell you this too, Jamie. As much as I just said what I'd say about Brady Clark.
Sorry, Corey. Maybe don't hoist the trophy because remember, didn't he hoist the super regional trophy and then he lacerated his hand? And he didn't have his hand. His hand was hurt against Tennessee.
Yeah, you're right. Don't give it to him.
Yeah.
We don't care if it's the.
Put gloves
go
on
ahead.
When you're holding it.
I don't care if he lacerates his hand in Omaha. Season's over.
Yeah, true. You're right.
Yeah, but I was going to say, I'll tell you this too, Jamie. I know I was just talking about protecting your arm and everything. If it's Game 3 of the championship series in Omaha, and the Noles have a 4-2 lead in the 7th inning, and you already pitched Game 1, and it's 2 days later,
come on out.
You better be in the bullpen warming up. Going to need 8 outs out of you, my man. Get out there and win a championship. Let's go.
All right, that's a wrap for us. We might bounce back with a Wednesday show since Florida State's playing an ACC tournament game that could potentially be Leonard Hamilton's last, but I don't believe that. They're going to make a magical run, everybody.
Yep, that's right.
And then obviously, again, playing Florida 6 o'clock. I think they said it's sold out, but I don't know, man. I feel like you can maybe find some weaknesses in the perimeter and it says the game is sold out to the general public, but fans can purchase tickets on SeatGeek. Limited tickets for FSU students remain available. And it's free if you're a student. It's got to go to the right field gate at Haggard Plaza.
Nice.
All right, Jeff Cameron Show, keeping you in the know. Again, shout out to Jeff who broke the news about the Luke Loucks hire. Had him as a one-on-one interview yesterday. If you haven't heard that, go check it out on our YouTube channel. It's there for you. Warchant TV. Did you guys do headlines?
Well, Jeff and I did, or Jeff and I will. I mean, we're doing it Tuesday, but Ira's traveling to Charlotte for the ACC tournament, so he couldn't do it.
Oh,
he's actually staying at my house. He stayed at my house Monday night.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. Well, I guess Leonard's swan song or whatever, possibly.
Yep,
so
that's right.
I hope he only packed like 2 days worth of clothes and is going to have to stay there for like a week and a half. Or
has to go to the laundromat. Has to go to the laundromat and keep recycling the Orioles sweatshirt. Yeah.
Warchant out here working for you, folks. Check us out, warchant.com. Thumbs up on the way out. We would appreciate that. He's Corey Maslon. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.